Yes, welcome to the No State Project live from the Fortified Compound in Mesa, Arizona. Glad to be with you. I'm going to say it's for November 10th. It's actually because the show will be broadcast on hopefully on the LRN stream tomorrow. So again, I'm not able to do that every other week or so. But I still want the new material, a lot of stuff to get to. So if you're listening on LRN.FM, I'm sorry, but the show is pre-recorded. So I let everybody know this week. So hopefully we've got enough people here that we can get enough material for a whole show. So we don't have anyone really. Well, we got one person. Okay. But if you want to join the show, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. You can also Skype me questions at Frank Rizzo 3, and things aren't looking very good right now. So hopefully people start filing in. Try to give notice, and I let people know on social media what time the show was starting. We are going to be going for about 2 hours commercial free, so that we have enough material for the LRN broadcast tomorrow. So hopefully that is going to happen. Again, in the show notes, the contact information is there if you want to join the big broadcast. And a couple of things I got to get to. I work with a lot of people. I do what I can to freely give my time. I don't have that much free time. I do 4 hours of live broadcasting a week, so I can field your questions regarding court procedure and whatnot. I've mentioned before, don't send me walls of text because I typically will just delete that. I think it, I don't know, is it disrespectful? It's just, I mean, seriously, when somebody sends me a 4,000, word email, I don't have the time to go through this. And I don't like when people do, a small block of text and say, call me now. I don't have the luxury just calling everyone who contacts me. I wouldn't be able to get anything else done. And also, something happened this week. Again, I am actually working with people and don't have the luxury of spending hours on emails. I already respond to enough emails, but if you give me a laundry list of questions, I'm probably going to delete your email, or I might answer one of the questions. So please don't find fault with me if I'm not answering every single question in an email, especially when we don't have a working relationship. If you want some more personal attention like that, then you can set up a consult, and we can do that. But to expect me to spend hours on email responding to question after question after no, you can post your questions here during a live broadcast. We can do that. You've got the chat. Because it is streaming live on my YouTube channel. You can also Skype me during the show. It's Frank Rizzo 3. Frank Rizzo with the number 3. So if you've got a question or concern, you can do it there. But 4 hours of broadcasting a week, that's going to have to be where if you've got a whole bunch of questions, just call the show. I can't. I don't have the time, and I really don't have the inclination when I have 4 hours of broadcast a week for people to get pissed off at me that I'm not spending an inordinate amount of time just sitting there and responding to all their questions. I get that courts are difficult to understand. I know that the procedures are, but I cannot dedicate the time every single day to responding to hundreds of questions in your emails. So hopefully that's going to be it about that. Although people still send me walls of text, and I just have to hit the delete button. I'm really sorry about that. And another thing too here is if you want to contact me, don't leave a message or a post on YouTube. I very rarely, look at the comments there. The website is markstevens.net. markstevens.net. My contact information is right there on the website. Take advantage of it. Another thing, the phone number that is on there, the Phoenix number, it's not just call and shoot the breeze with me. It's not to call and just ask a question about court procedure. That's what the show is for. So please, unless you're having a serious problem with ordering something from the website, that there is an issue with PayPal or Sells, email me first. don't just pick up and call. So I had someone do that the other day. It was because of the area code. The only reason why I called it back. So please don't do one of these. Hey, Mark, I just got to ask you a few questions. I'm having trouble with the website. Email me first that you have a question, you're having a concern. And if there really is a problem with PayPal or Sells, screen cap what the problem is and then email that to me so I can, if there is a legitimate problem, which so far there hasn't been, but if there is a legitimate problem, it's something I can actually look at. I did not get to, hopefully, I am connected to the caller line, but I'm not actually able to see if anyone has called in yet. I don't know if I'm going to be disappointed with that too. No. Okay. So where are we? All right. So a lot of stuff to got another success story. I'll talk about that more after. But I want to thank Robert for his continued support of the show. Today's big broadcast is brought to you by Robert on the West Coast. And some good questions here. Wow. The first one is a doozy. So I'm gonna go ahead and answer number 2 first. You said, I recently got a summons for jury duty and my number wasn't called. Do you have any recommendation on how to avoid jury duty, or should we serve and nullify dumb laws? Well, we had someone call the show recently about that, Robert, and I think he was more before speaking to me, he just wanted to be able to, get rid of it and not have to comply. But then after we discussed it, I think he was kind of on the fence and thinking, maybe he could nullify a bad law. Or I don't know if it's necessarily nullifying the law. It would have to happen quite a few times. But I want to see if we have an opportunity. Again, if it's an appropriate time for an opportunity to actually be a juror, there is a possibility you can save somebody's life. I don't mean that they're going to necessarily die, no, but you have an opportunity to for some jury nullification, to at least hang the jury, because in most parts, in the United States, you still have to, I think Oregon is kind of. I think Oregon, where criminal, it doesn't have to be unanimous. But outside of that, where it is unanimous, you can help hang a jury. And if there is somebody who is being charged with a code violation, then, hey, if you have the opportunity, that might be something that you want to do as far as an activist. Now, you don't want to say that. You just want to hold out. I don't believe that the prosecution has met their burden. I don't believe they made a case. I don't think the guy did anything wrong. So, you can't say you're an anarchist. That goes to the first part of your question on how to avoid it. I think if you just say, I'm an anarchist and think government should be abolished as a criminal organization, I think they would excuse you. I wouldn't think that a prosecutor or a judge would say, wow, this sounds like somebody we need on the jury. They want somebody who's a pro-state. They want a company man or woman on there. So that, I think, is a way to avoid that. You could do what JT did also, maybe have some fun with it and send back, because the jury summons, it's a summons. Summonses are not voluntary. They're not invitations. Hey, dude, we're having a party over here and we certainly would like you to attend if possible. No, they are coercive orders. And so you could ask, and this helped JT, they left him alone, where is my voluntary signature required? Because there's a questionnaire. Is my voluntary signature required? And then the second question to follow up is, if so, is it considered voluntary if done under threat of contempt? So that's something you could do to avoid possibly filling out the questionnaire. Although saying you're an anarchist and you think government should be abolished because it's a criminal organization, that should make it certain that you, whoa, we do not want you. We don't want you. So so those are my thoughts on that. Again, if you have the opportunity and it's a code violation, yeah, I that would be something that I think would be good if you can save someone's life in that, because look, like I'll talk about later, they have an obligation. If the prosecution is claiming that the laws apply and you violated them, well, then they have an obligation to prove both parts beyond a reasonable doubt. They're both elements. So, I don't think that they met their burden of proof. Well, what do you mean? Well, like I said, they're saying that the laws apply and he violated them, right? Well, yeah. Well, did anyone testify? Was any evidence whatsoever provided by the prosecution to prove that the laws apply in the first place? So you're at least giving your reasoning as to why. And what are they going to do? Well, he doesn't have to prove that. We see, I got a problem with that. I got a real issue with that. Isn't that an element of the crime? I mean, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but certainly there's no crime without the code, right? They're saying he violated it. So why don't they have to prove that it applies? Why is that a given? I don't think the prosecution met their burden of proof. So I'm going to vote nay. I'm going to say nay. And I am not going to vote to convict. They're going to have to prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, even the judge said they have to prove every element beyond the reasonable doubt. That's an element. Well, the judge didn't say it was an element. Well, ask yourself then, tough guy. Can they prove that he violated law beyond a reasonable doubt without first proving the laws apply? And doesn't the prosecution have to have witnesses? That's why they called a cop, right? The cop didn't testify that the laws applied with any kind of evidence. He just said that they did. That's not proof. I am not a lawyer. Why would somebody want to throw that title on me? I don't know, but I am not a lawyer. I consider myself honest. I certainly don't take advantage of people that are being attacked. All right, so that is the second question here as far as the jury duty. First one, he says, there are a lot of stories in the mass media about the deportation of non-U.S. citizens by ICE and the outcry about their tactics, separating families. Because they're not people first. They're filthy immigrants. They're bringing their robbers, their rapists. Some of them, I'm sure, are good people. I've also seen stories where they want to remove some immigrants of their citizenship or strip them of their citizenship. How would you deal with someone if they wanted to challenge this claim about citizenship? Would jurisdiction be a good issue to raise? Yeah, it's kind of a sticky situation there because if you're challenging jurisdiction after taking an oath of allegiance, they're going to use that against you. Then you'd have to go back to, well, I had to do that or they would have physically and forcibly removed me. So I have worked with people in tax cases where they were all naturalized. And they came from a place in Asia where nobody wants to go back to. I wouldn't think so anyway. I wouldn't want to go back there. They certainly didn't want to go back there. And they made up their mind, and their decision was that this is wrong. This is a matter of principle. And if they want to threaten us with deportation, we'll deal with it. You got to have jurisdiction to deport somebody. See, that was, what I wanted to do. It never materialized, of course, was to make some kind of an activist where you would cross the border from New Hampshire into Canada and be able to challenge them on jurisdictional grounds. Their jurisdiction is based on their laws applying in that physical area called Canada. And they have just as much evidence to prove that as the people in New Hampshire have that they have jurisdiction, because a written instrument from 200 years ago, they think applies to you and gives them jurisdiction. Yes, I know jurisdiction is power to act. I know. And that power, according to their own rules, is true to Constitution. So, yeah, that's why they say if it's unconstitutional, it gets struck down. So if they are acting outside the Constitution, they don't have any authority. Their power is not sanctioned. So, yeah, not so. I guess you could do that, knowing that they're going to use citizenship against you, and you'd have to be able to still then show that that was coerced. They wouldn't have let you stay, which is kind of a dick move. And that, yeah, you would have to, it's, to me, I look at the citizenship is really no different than having a driver's license. So when they say that their jurisdiction is because you had a driver's license, oh, so if I didn't if I didn't have the driver's license, you wouldn't have any jurisdiction at all. Imagine that. They only have jurisdiction over people who have driver's licenses. Yeah, say that to the people who want to stop the immigrants. So, and now they'll, of course, say, well, no, of course not. We'd still have jurisdiction even if you didn't have the driver's license. So the driver's license isn't relevant. So here, whether someone is naturalized or not is irrelevant to their claim of jurisdiction. Doesn't matter. That's why they're trying to stop people at the border. That's why they're pulling families apart. That's why they have hundreds, if not thousands, of children that still are separated by hundreds, even maybe 1,000 or 2 miles from their parents. And they don't know where they are. In some cases, I've heard reported. They don't even know where these kids are now. Yeah. So hopefully that addresses it, Robert. And I appreciate those questions. That's a tough one. Because, you know, again, just like with this family that I dealt with, you run the risk that they'll turn around and just want to forcibly, you know, deport you. And, you know, they've always got that threat behind them. So, well, they got threats behind everything that they say and that they do. So, oh, my call is dropped off? Really? All right, we'll call back. We got plenty of time here. It's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399 get you onto the big broadcast there today. If you disagree with what I was talking about as far as immigration, give us a call. Oh, and the passcode is 2020, and it's not a toll-free call, but hey. All right. We've got a new success story, kind of dovetails, you know, nice with what I was just talking about. And Scott in West Virginia. And it was traffic. There was a number of charges, but there was traffic. And it was misdemeanor. This was misdemeanor traffic. So according to the paperwork, there was jail time attached to this. So he was looking at, not a lot, but really does it, you know, I mean, any jail time, especially for a non-violent offense, is too much. Too much. Not having a driver's license, 10 days in jail? Really? You're jailing somebody for not having a license. I mean, it's not like, you know, acting like a surgeon without, you know, I mean, where people's lives are at stake. Geez. Somebody's saying New York National. National is still one that owes allegiance. So, you know, allegiance and protection, very similar to a citizen. I think it might even be considered synonymous by those people. So, yeah. Well, someone's saying his citizenship confers jurisdiction. Well, no, because you have to look at the foundation. Does any citizenship really exist? I mean, I've discussed this on the show many times. To be a citizen, there has to be a member. You have to be a member of the body politic, owing a duty of allegiance in return for a duty of protection that they owe you. And there is no duty to protect you. And even if they say there are, even if they do go out and actually protect some people, duties of allegiance and duties of protection are not created because you force perfect strangers to give you money. So using aggression and a prison system negates the whole concept of citizenship. So no one is actually a citizen. Even if you go through the naturalization process, that still doesn't make them citizens. And you were forced to do that or you had to leave. So, no. All right. So getting to this. So what Scott did was he filed the motion to dismiss and the Brady request. And for those who may not be familiar there, the motion to dismiss is very specific. It's about 4 or 5 issues. And other than one, they all hinge on whether there is jurisdiction and standing to complain. We're talking personal jurisdiction. That's where they have power to act on you. And then there's subject matter jurisdiction where they have jurisdiction to hear certain types of cases. Now, both of these, personal jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction, hinge on the claim that if you're physically in New York, or let's say West Virginia here, then a written instrument called the Constitution applies and gives the court jurisdiction, or gives the police officer jurisdiction and probable cause to investigate a possible violation of their sacred law. So that's their claim. Now, do they have any actual evidence of this? And this is something that, of course, Scott reviewed the record he saw. He was a participant in this. Didn't see any such evidence. All there was an allegation. Now, they said he was physically in West Virginia on a certain day. Okay. And from there, they just assume that if you're physically in West Virginia, then the constitutional laws apply. That's an assumption. Does your physical location prove or have any chance of proving that a written instrument called the Constitution applies to you? Does your physical location prove, and just that, does your physical location prove the laws apply? Now, it's a written instrument. The answer is no, which is why through all these call of shames, none of the bureaucrats, judges, lawyers, prosecutors, none of them can actually prove that. Even a lawyer who came on the show said that your physical location does not prove the Constitution applies. And it cannot. It cannot. So there's a few recent call of shames where I went through that. So if you're not familiar with those, go back and listen to those. Very instructive, and shows how easy it is to destroy these arguments. So after a while, there's no response, which is typical from the prosecutor. So they get the motion to dismiss, which is based on a lack of evidence. Instead of just pointing out the record where this evidence is and showing that Scott doesn't know what he's talking about, they just ignore it. Now, the other part of it is the discovery request, which we're also asking for Brady material. Brady material, of course, is any information that shows that you're innocent, or is impeachment information for the witnesses that that the prosecution relies on. And the prosecution in most of these code violations are relying on just police officers or code enforcers, and they are testifying. They have to have personal knowledge of the matters they're testifying to. The personal knowledge can consist of their own testimony. That's true, but that's the part of this. The point of discovery is so that they tell you and give you an idea of what they're testifying to. So what evidence, what proof they plan on using against you, including the witness's personal knowledge, should be set forth in their response to the Brady request and in the discovery request. Well, the prosecution typically doesn't respond to that. And if they do, it's usually just a police report. They never say, this witness has personal firsthand knowledge. This is the witness that's going to be testifying that the laws apply and you violated them. And here is the proof of their personal knowledge, which they will bring out in testimony. They don't do that. So because they're required to do that, that is a Brady violation. Some may argue, and they'll try to tell you that the police officer doesn't have to have evidence the laws apply, or he doesn't have to have personal knowledge. Well, if he's testifying that the laws apply to you and you violated them, he has that personal knowledge of the matters he's testifying to. That would include that the laws apply and you violated them. Well, what if he's not testifying directly and specifically that the laws apply to you? Is he testifying that I violated the laws? Yes. Well, then he believes that the laws apply to me. And since he believes and is testifying that the laws apply, because it's implied, if you're testifying that the laws were broken, that Mark or Scott here, if Scott violated, well, then it's obviously common sense, and it's because you're assuming. It's implied there that the laws apply because you're trying to prove that they violated it. So it doesn't help any even if the cop doesn't directly say these laws apply to Scott. When he says he violated them, yeah, and that goes to his prior statements anyway. He's already stated under penalty of perjury, or it's certified that you violated the law, meaning the laws applied and you violated them. And none of the testimony about you violating the law is relevant if they haven't first built the foundation that the laws apply in the first place. So if I was going against, let's say, the city of Mesa for damaging me, the cop, the prosecutor, and the judge, and they damaged me, what I would do to show that the laws apply to them was I would just go to personnel and I would get a copy of their oath of office. Now I can show that they violated it. Once I have their oath of office, it's at least prima facie evidence allowing me to go to trial. I've got an oath of office. I just have to establish that. They would have to, in cross-examination, let's say, they would have to be able to show that that the oath of office doesn't prove that they're required to follow the law, that the laws apply to them. Good luck with that. But once I have that done and I have the oath of office, now it's relevant to talk about what the cop did on the traffic stop and that he violated those laws. Or a tax agent, for example, where I can show that they are committing, larceny, or that, it's robbery. Or in the case of the Colorado tax people that I mentioned on the last few shows, I can show that they violated the mail fraud statute because I can show in their oath of office that they are taking an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws thereof. So, yep. Got to have your relevance. So the prosecutor here, and I'll have all this up. I'm going out of town. I'm probably not going to have the new success story until Tuesday, so I apologize for that. But I got the documents. Remember, I don't post a success story unless I have the documentary proof. You got to give something for the critics to spin. But I think it's just that important to do everything based on the evidence. So, lo and behold, all Scott did was point out that the prosecution did not have facts to even meet a prima facie burden on jurisdiction, personal, and subject matter. And instead of responding to that, the prosecution filed a motion to dismiss, declining to prosecute at this time. Can't get enough of those. Yes, a nolo prosequi, although I don't know if they said that, but they declined to prosecute, and the judge signed off on it. Oh, some may say, well, maybe the prosecution, it's a busy office. It's very big. It's a big office. They got a lot of people. It's one of the biggest offices. Good people, some of the best people. Big office, though. Very sophisticated, very, very busy. Best office, a lot of jobs, doing a lot of work, and a traffic thing. Why? No, it's not a big deal. So some may say they just, big office, a lot of prosecutions, not high on the list. They let it go. They would have declined under any defense. That just the fact that Scott launched the defense. That was all that was necessary. He could have just printed out. He could have just copied and pasted, things from the internet that made almost no sense whatsoever. Could have been incomprehensible, legalistic gibberish. And just the mere fact that he launched a defense in a traffic case, even though it was criminal, misdemeanor. That is it's a misdemeanor, so we're gonna let it go. Is that plausible? Yeah, I think we got to allow for that. We got to allow for that. Is it very probable? To think that he could have just that the defense, regardless of its merits, was enough to get them to back off of a misdemeanor charge. I wish that were true. I wish it was true to just say, just any defense whatsoever, you stand a really good chance of getting it thrown out just because you're challenging it. I think if you've got 100 people challenging it now, but one, what's one? And these things are such slam dunks anyway. What is it? Misdemeanor traffic? Was that an hour trial? Really? If that? Much less than an hour if you cut off the cross-examination because you're asking for facts to support the officer's claim that the laws apply? What facts did you rely on when you made that determination there on the street there, tough guy? Huh? What was going through that big, best brain of all time, okay? Just a good brain. Good brain. Great memory. One of the all-time memories. One of the all-time best memories. What was going through your head? What led you to believe that these laws applied to me and gave you jurisdiction there, tough guy? So then they cut it off. They don't allow him to answer because asking the police officer for the facts that he relied on, whoa, we're not going to allow an effective cross-examination. Nobody will be able to be convicted in traffic court. So they cut it off. So the whole thing is less than an hour. Easy conviction, especially when you got judges that just do whatever the prosecutor wants. So the prosecutor here, save face. I say that given the evidence and that he filed a logical, effective defense and was pointing out that the prosecutor did not have required evidence, that was enough that I'll even say this is too much work because they can't provide the evidence. If the prosecution had the evidence, all they would do is fire back with a response and saying, this, that, and the other thing right there in the record is that proves XYZ. That proves. They don't because they can't. So they withdraw. And we've gotten a lot of withdrawals. We've gotten an awful lot. So you go to markstevens.net. If you're not familiar with that, go to the success stories. I just posted one yesterday and we had three tickets thrown out. So this week, within a week, I'll be able to post 4. So we have Ohio. Oh, this actually, it's Ohio County, West Virginia. I didn't know there was an Ohio County. I actually didn't know there was I think there's 7 or 8 Detroits in the United States too. So we've got Ohio, West Virginia, New York, and New Hampshire. So big congratulations to everybody again for that. I will get that posted as soon as I can. Again, I'm going to be out of town for a few days. But I will get that posted. And again, I have the documentary proof. I've got the prosecutor, his motion to dismiss. I don't want to, I'm declining to prosecute. And the judge's order granting the dismissal, which is nice. But I don't know if I have ever had it reported to me that a prosecutor did file a motion to dismiss, and the judge said, but phone call, no, I'm not going to dismiss. You're going to have to prosecute this case or get somebody else from your office to do it. But this SOB is going to get punished. This son of a, yeah. So, but it may just be that it wasn't reported to me. Maybe that's happened, or I don't remember. Deal with a lot of people, a lot of good people, the best people. All right, so I think I have some other things we'll get to, but it looks like right now we're going to. Yeah, I lost my headset again. We'll go to the phones. They've been very patient, somewhat patient. We have Paul in Florida. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Hey, nice to talk to you again, Mark.
Hey, good to have you back on. You got some good news for me because I've gotten a bunch of good news lately.
No, but I did want to update you.
Well, okay. Well, we didn't have all good news, so I still haven't heard.
Feedback?
I'm sorry?
Are you getting feedback?
You know, my
my
mic
phone?
seems really, really hot right now, and I don't know why, but no, I'm not getting any feedback. I know now why the mic was doing what it was doing, but and that's fine now.
My side was kind of echoing.
Really?
It sounds like it's gone now.
Okay.
So, okay. So I had my motion to dismiss hearing a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
It did actually take about 40 minutes.
Wow.
And it was the typical thing that you just got done talking about, where the judge, she still never addressed my question of where the evidence was. She just said, you were, the prosecutor came in and gave you
hold on a second. I need you to hold on 1 second.
Oh, okay.
That was odd.
Tech fund.
Yeah, you had some serious background noise on your end still.
Are we okay now?
Well, there's some. I'm hoping that's not coming out. Yeah, it's like you're hitting your microphone or your headset.
Is this any better?
Yeah. Maybe I can go back and I can edit that out. We're at the. Hold on a second. 36-minute mark. Okay. All right. It seems to be done. So what? Okay. So
I went off a speakerphone, so I'm just talking to you normal now. So.
Oh, that's what was doing it. Okay. So it wasn't mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So it was 40 minutes long, and she's trying, and so it's between you and the judge, and not the prosecution offering this argument that just because you're physically in Florida.
Right. The prosecutor did the normal thing where she, at first I thought I was just going to ask, hey, the cop's not here, but he did show up. So, and again,
wow.
The first time I went to court with on this same thing, it was originally speeding, and then then it was for no insurance and no registration, and my license was suspended from before, so all that other stuff was added on. But in the original speeding trial, I got the cop to say that there was no injured party, and I asked for a dismissal right there. And again, the judge just totally, blew it off, just totally ignored it. I understand I'm going to have to probably appeal some of this stuff, but
okay. But why did you move for an immediate dismissal on just that point alone?
Well, because that's just where we were I had already, again, I did all the stuff that I'm supposed to do, and she was not, she basically ignored all the jurisdiction stuff at the speeding trial too. Okay. And this is all in front of the same judge. I've been in front of her 5 times now.
Well, if it's a different case, that judge should have been recused. If she found you guilty in another case, then that should be a no-brainer recusal. I mean, I've even had some of the worst here in Mesa, because they sat on one trial, they got randomly assigned and they recused themselves, and it wasn't even an issue for me. But this woman is so blind to any kind of fairness, any even appearance of fairness, that even though she found you guilty in another trial, she's going to sit on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to file a motion. You got to file a motion to recuse. She should have recused herself. I mean,
I was wondering if I should do that, because I'm not getting any, it's falling on deaf ears at this point. I did want to say, so she, I got the motion to dismiss is denied. And so I went back for a docket hearing, or a docket sounding, on Tuesday. And she said, Mr. Crane, are you ready to proceed? And I said, no. And she goes, what? I said, well, I still haven't got any of my just basic questions answered. I said, as you remember, I did file that conditional guilty plea, but I still haven't got those questions answered, so I can't sign it.
But it's not a condition. Wait, Paul. Why would you say it's a conditional plea? It's not a conditional plea. You're waiving your right to appeal. End of discussion. It's not a conditional plea. You can read right in there. You're waiving your right to appeal. It is not a conditional plea on that. I don't care what, look, legal phrases sometimes are unique to the legal world. So while it might on its face appear to be conditional, it's not. It's just like saying person. In lay terms, a person is just a man, woman, or child. But in law, a person is man, woman, child, corporation, sole proprietor, or a city or a state. So a conditional plea is only conditional when you reserve your right to appeal certain aspects of the judgment. And that's not what you're doing.
I thought it was conditional because I thought it was conditional because I hadn't signed it yet.
No, a conditional plea, and I've done this. I've done this on the show many times, because they'll tell you, at least in traffic, all right, they will tell you they don't accept conditional pleas. So we'll go back to the, we'll go to this is legalmatch.com. I think, well, let's see. Conditional pleas. We'll go to nolo.com. It's a legal encyclopedia. And a conditional plea occurs when a defendant pleads guilty or no contest, but reserves the right to have an appeals court decide whether the judge reached a wrong ruling on an issue that's central to the case. If the appellate court determines that the judge was in fact wrong, the defendant can withdraw the plea. And that is not what we're doing. We are not reserving the right to appeal anything. So when someone says this is a conditional plea and they claim to know the law, then they're trying to mislead people, or they're trying to take away from why this has been effective for me and other people in the past, and try to just to piss on the work and complain about everything. And so once again, I'm explaining it's not a conditional plea. I know what a conditional plea is. I wrote that over 10 years ago. I deliberately put in there, because of that crap, I deliberately put in there waiving my right. You've read it, right? Doesn't it say waiving my right to appeal?
Yes.
Yeah. So if a conditional plea is where you're reserving the right to have an appeals court decide whether a judge reached the wrong ruling, by reading the actual proposed plea that I sent you, could anyone of reasonable mind think that that was a conditional plea?
Well, not based upon what the definition you just gave. No.
Well, that's what a conditional plea is. A conditional.
So how do you refer to that? Then you just say I'm still planning on pleading guilty, but I need questions answered. You just don't refer to it as a conditional plea. Is that
right.
What you're saying?
If you refer to it as a conditional plea, they'll say, "Aba fungual, we don't accept conditional pleas here." Now you're stuck. So I intend on pleading guilty if the prosecution has met their burden, at least to this point. And that's all you're doing. And it's not conditional because you're only going to plead guilty if they have evidence. You shouldn't have to plead guilty to anything if the prosecution hasn't met their burden of proof. That's the logic behind doing that. There is no reason, there is no logical or valid legal reason for you or anyone else to enter a plea if the prosecution hasn't established that there's jurisdiction to hold you for a plea, right? I mean, if I'm wrong on that, if that logic is off, please inform me, because at least all these years I've been laboring under that impression that if there's no jurisdiction, a plea isn't even necessary because the court has no jurisdiction.
Well, again, I wouldn't be putting myself through all this if I did believe that was the truth. So I'll go back to where we were. So at the docket sounding this on Tuesday, when I said I wasn't ready and that I hadn't got the answers I said I haven't got my answers question, and she pointed to the prosecution and she said, "Well, hasn't the prosecution given you what you requested?" I said, "Yes, but I haven't got the answers from you, Judge, the court that I've been asking." And I guess she didn't like that very much. But so
you're killing me here, though, Paul. You're telling me that the prosecution was responsive to your Brady request and your discovery request.
I'm sorry, say that again.
It sounds to me like you're saying that when the judge asked you that question, that the prosecution has been responsive to your discovery request, or at least to the motion, and that you're waiting.
No, they have not.
Yeah, that was the wrong
But I
thing
can
to
see
say.
what I understand what you're saying. I didn't address that. I should have addressed that directly before I said anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for holding the judge, because the judge's questions go to the burden of proof of the prosecutor, where has the prosecution, is there any facts on the record that would prove that that the court has jurisdiction, that just because I'm physically in Florida, that your constitution, a written instrument, applies to me? What evidence is there? The judge is the one that is under the impression that jurisdiction has been proven. The prosecution has the burden to prove jurisdiction to the satisfaction of the judge. The judge, when he forces you into an arraignment, a pretrial, and a trial, is under the impression that the prosecution has met their burden. And that's why I think the questions are appropriate to ask them, since they're the ones that are actually using the, and aggressing against you and forcing you to participate in the process, at all.
Well, she's not making, the judge is not making the prosecution answer the question. She's just going along with the, hey, the cops saw you there, and, the statutes say this is what the penalty is for doing what you did. So
did you object?
That's why I did.
Okay.
I have several times.
Good.
So I will try to. One thing about going in so many times, I'm getting better, I guess. So when I get a chance, I'll try to send you. I'll try to get all the video recordings. I'll send them to you. But so I'm scheduled again for January. What happened? Scheduled for January 24th for trial. I didn't know if I needed to file a motion in limine, and I'm not sure how to handle that, if they question me about it, or if I should just do a judge recusal, like you said, if that's the best way to do it. I guess I'm ticking somebody off there, because I left the courtroom. I'm sitting in my vehicle talking on my phone, and the sheriff, who was the bailiff in court, comes down, and I see him coming across the parking lot, and he asked me to roll down my window, and he's asking me, are you, giving my name? And I said, I prefer not to answer questions right now. And he had all my information written down on this piece of paper. Do you have a license? Do you have any ID? And I said, no. And so he pulls me out of my vehicle and says, okay, well, I can haul you to jail and give you a ticket for no license and no insurance, or I can just write you a citation. And so he ended up writing me a citation for driving with no license, even though I was parked in the parking lot. So I don't really understand that. And then he signed it, but the other thing I wanted to know, there's no fee written on it anywhere. And
there's no fee?
Because on the back it says pay this amount. So is that something I could just send in and say, here, I'm paying the amount it said? Because it says he also specifically marked that I do not have to appear. So I didn't know if that was another thing I had to request a court date for. What's the best way to handle that kind of ticket?
First of all, the guy's a real douche. I mean, cops doing that, just being a douche. Let's address that first, because you had two issues here about the motion in limine and your recusal. Definitely, I would absolutely file as soon as possible to recuse the judge, and put in there that the judge has previously found you guilty in other cases, and that automatically disqualifies the judge from hearing another case in front of you. They have already found you guilty. They're already prejudiced against you. That is a no-brainer. And then you could also put in there the fact that she is not presuming you innocent, and that she is just parroting the prosecution's arguments and not holding them to any kind of burden. Then for the motion to eliminate, yes, whether there's another judge or not, where you do have remedy, if she denies it, then you can still appeal that by way of a petition for writ of mandamus into the higher court if you were inclined to do that. The motion to eliminate is to limit argument and evidence that is deemed not appropriate or relevant and admissible. And so if the prosecutor, so I do that because based on the record so far that you have not gotten a responsive answer and the discovery information that you're supposed to have, that the prosecutor is arguing without evidence. Specifically, they're arguing the laws apply and you violate them. They don't have sufficient or any evidence to prove the first part. They have no evidence to show that the laws apply. All they have is your physical location, and then from there, they're trying to claim that that proves this written instrument applies to you, which they can't explain, and certainly their witness won't be able to explain on the stand why that's true. It's a non sequitur at best. So they are arguing without evidence. That is prosecutorial misconduct. So the limine, and we've had the motion limine granted. I got the actual document on markstevens.net. Contrary to a few critics that will say that's not what. Don't believe your eyes and what your ears. You don't believe what you're seeing and hearing. It's not true. It's like what Trump said. Don't believe that. That's what the critics will tell you. Don't look at the documentary proof that Mark has on the website. That's not what it means. Just because the court granted the motion in limine doesn't mean they granted the motion in limine, or doesn't mean that the judge thought that there was any merit to it. So don't, so who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes, right? So what you can do is email me after the show, and I will send you what goes with the motion in limine. You can file the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct, which lays out that lawyers and prosecutors, of course, have an ethical obligation to only argue with facts and law. And I know jurisdiction is not a pure issue of law requiring no evidence. It's an issue of law that does require evidence because they have to prove at least your physical location. So it is an issue of fact, and he wants to argue, but it's not sufficient fact. So here the prosecutor is arguing without fact and law. He's relying on a witness that he has to date no proof has personal knowledge of the matters you're testifying to. So he's arguing without evidence, and he's going to call a witness he knows is not qualified. That is prosecutorial misconduct, and that's why it's in the motion. You do have to edit it for your facts. I don't want anyone to ever email me and say I was supposed to edit that. Somebody actually filed this motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct and didn't edit it beyond the caption. Oh. So
I got to know what to say when I'm there if they ask me questions. So
sure.
I definitely
a lot of it is
edited. So.
A lot of it should be in the motions, and we'll see. Do we have time for that? All right, we got some time for that.
And please address that ticket issue too, please. So.
Yeah, we will. But it's a lot of the issues that I'm discussing with you now that the prosecution is arguing without evidence. So it's a matter of just and you could put you could say yes or no. Does the prosecution have any evidence to prove that just because I'm physically in Florida, that the Constitution applies to me? Yes or no? And if he does have it, where in the record are all those facts? And two, why didn't he provide any of this in discovery? And why won't he say whether his witness has personal knowledge or not of the matters they're testifying to? That's a Brady violation.
So I put that in the motion?
That you email me, I'll send it to you. The legal issues are going to be the same. You have to edit out and put in your own facts. The prosecutor's name is not going to be Tiffany Castillo. It's going to be whatever,
It is a female, though.
Oh, well, okay. It might be Tiffany, but if it's Tiffany Castillo, then you can call me on that number on my website and tell me that then it's okay. Hey, Mark, I got another Tiffany Castillo prosecutor. Make sure you edit that in. So really what you're saying there is you're still asking leading questions, yes or no. Does the prosecution have this evidence? Again, now let's say they turn around and they say to you, he doesn't have to, or she doesn't have to prove that. What do you say?
What do I say on that? You threw me off guard. I wasn't ready to answer a question. He doesn't have to answer. So isn't the burden of proof on the prosecution?
Yeah, but they don't have to prove that, sir.
So you're saying that I want to be a smart ass and say something, but I always have to bite my tongue. I'm not sure what's the right thing to say.
You should be saying objection first.
Oh, okay.
And what I would say there is, I was an objection. You're allowing him to argue without evidence. You can allow me to argue without evidence too? Can I make legal claims against them without any evidence?
Okay.
That's a good question. There's not much. The only thing they can say, and they probably get a little bit, irritated, says, of course not. And if you dare do that, you will be held in contempt. Well, objection. Isn't that a double standard? How isn't that a double standard then? Why does he get to argue without evidence, but I can't? I mean, I wouldn't ask the second part that way. I would ask, isn't that a double standard first? Because you want to ask as many, really just stick to leading questions. Isn't that a double standard?
Right.
A leading question would be, why are you allowing them to do that? Are you allowing them to do that because you're biased, in their favor? See, that's a much better question because it's a leading question, and it gives something for the judge to respond to without giving you a damn narrative that no one's interested in anyway, because it's not going to be responsive. So with this ticket, I would say that they would probably hold the lack of a fee written in as a harmless error. They're not going to let it go. I doubt that they're going to let it go because of that. I would file the motion to dismiss again in the, also here, and I may include in that, the officer didn't, it was purely vindictive, and because it was right after court, and he left us out. Of course, it's not a big issue. It's probably not why they would throw it out, but it may actually, give them reason to avoid throwing it out for lack of evidence proven jurisdiction, like what happened with Mike in Ohio, and then they just go based on something else that didn't happen. So it's worth putting in. So that's how I would do that.
So just file the normal paperwork on that, but just include the specifics on the what happened.
Yeah, edit that one, another section, and including that, and throw in that it was done maliciously. It was done in bad faith. He targeted me.
So I need to go ahead and. So should I send the ticket in with that motion to dismiss, or do I need to request another court date then?
No, you don't.
What's
unless you want a hearing on the motion to dismiss, you don't have to request a hearing.
Okay, so just send that in with the ticket.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
All right. Sounds good. I'll email you and go from there. I'll listen to this. I'll listen or watch this on YouTube a couple times, so and write down the questions and be ready for them in January, I guess.
Do some role playing. I missed the session yesterday, but do the role playing. You get me a Frank Rizzo 300.
I've never been able to find anybody live on that. Never.
Well,
you're on Discord?
Get me a Frank Rizzo 3, and I'll put you in the chat and say that you're on the show and you want to participate in the Discord role playing. And hopefully next Thursday we definitely I'll be able to participate. So you've got plenty of time, and so let's get it started. Definitely next week.
Well, I appreciate your time again, Mark, as always.
Not a problem. We'll talk to you soon. That was, of course, Paul in Florida. If you want to join me on the show, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399 is the number. The passcode is 2020 with that pound sign. If you can also, I haven't been checking Skype, but if you do have a question on Skype, you can Skype me at Frank Rizzo 3. Not to join me on the show today, usually on a Saturday show, because we have breaks. You can Skype me your questions there. And I got somebody who contacted me. They saying that what they said in the email, and I've heard this before, that the police officer will stop them and they'll take their driver's license, and for some reason they'll call his name in. They'll call in to the station regarding his name and who they have, there's nothing in the email indicating why the police officer is calling the police department, dispatch, whatever they're called, regarding him instead of just giving him a ticket. But, and I questioned him in the email about this, that every time, and he says he's never gotten a ticket after a certain point, every single time he hears the cop's radio where dispatch comes back, do not detain. And then the police officer just says goodbye and that's it. So every traffic stop, regardless, it ends the same way. Do not detain, and they leave him alone. I don't know why. I'd like to see it. Like somebody else emailed me and they said something about none of the United States Code, none of the laws were ever actually enacted into law. They're just bills. They were never passed. They were never, they're just, and apparently he's got from the United States Archive, he's got some certified copies of documents that actually prove none of the laws, nothing from the United States Code was actually passed into law. What do you do with that? So he can't scan the documents. So he wants to mail some documents to me. Hopefully they're just copies. I've seen this stuff before, and they have these things on video where you can watch them voting on their laws, and then they have the president sign it according to their constitution. Where does this come from that they're not actually passing them, that they're just all bills? I know a lot of it's theater, but good Lord. I don't get it. Asking questions, that so important. And so much of this crap that's happened this week, oh, you can't believe all the crap. So anyway, the importance of asking questions. A lot of people have probably seen the crap storm that happened with Jim Acosta, who's a reporter with CNN. He was asking Trump some questions about the Russia investigation. He insisted it's a hoax. His own son is on video talking about meeting with people with the Russian government. And they said it was about adoption. Paul Manafort was there. He's sitting in prison right now. It's all a hoax. No, you actually being president and people acting as, senators and whatnot, they're actually being a government. That's a hoax. That could be disproven. That could be disproven as a hoax. But so he doesn't like these questions. And so, again, he gives it to Jim Acosta and walks away from the microphone like a tough guy. And, when he's acting tough with the media, he's a real tough guy. Those bone spurs don't hurt him much. He's able to walk and strut around the lectern. Yeah, and then those bone spurs not a problem when it's he's being a tough guy, when it doesn't require him to actually be a tough guy. So he has a intern. Well, he doesn't. He wants the microphone. Take his microphone, and so he's trying to do a follow-up question, which is what journalists do or supposed to do. And she reaches across him. And he kind of hits her elbow, and he doesn't let her take the microphone, and then she dutifully sits back down. And now they're saying they took his press pass, and they're saying that he assaulted her. And I can't help but think, if he had grabbed her by the crotch, would there have been a problem? This is a guy who brags about grabbing women by their crotch. Is he really and then to have such a lopsided, so when he grabs a woman by the crotch, it's okay. if someone tries to take a microphone out of a journalist's hand and their hand just happens to, brush their, just hit their it wasn't even hard, it just hits their elbow, that's assault. I can't seem to make sense of something like that. But I could imagine what Trump would do if I had the opportunity to ask him some questions. Oh, I probably would be tackled by Secret Service. I'd be the new "don't tase me, bro" guy. That, so those were difficult questions, and Trump, avoided them. In the same press conference, he actually called a black reporter said that she was asking a racist question because she was questioning him on saying that he was a nationalist. Well, she was going by what the word usually historically means, white nationalist, white. So imagine if Trump is being asked questions about Saudi Arabia. Imagine that. Oh, how about American support of Saudi Arabia for what Saudi Arabia is doing in Yemen? Those are tough questions. Those would be tough questions. Here's one that I would love to ask him about the blood that's on his hands. And that is by continuing the drone strikes that maniac Obama was doing, who has the nerve to go out and talk about how bad Trump is. Now, Trump is bad. But someone like Obama and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden have no standing to point fingers at Trump. Trump, bad. How many bombs that Obama dropped with his drone strikes? Obama had an assassination list, indefinite detention without charges. Spying on everybody. The drone strikes, the horrific drone strikes, killing a 16-year-old boy because they suspected his father was a terrorist. Oh, but then Trump. Why aren't they questioning him on his statement that you don't just kill the terrorist, you go after his family? That's a tough question. That would be a tough question to ask. You think that's consistent with fairness, due process, and justice to kill an innocent person because their father or their uncle may have been a terrorist? You kill the whole family? I seem to remember they did something like that in the Mafia. There was a movie about that. This Ness, I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burned to the ground. I want to piss on his ashes. Tough guy Trump, Mr. Bone Spur himself, grab him by the... How many innocent people have died just since Trump took office in the Middle East because of the drone strikes? Ask him that. See what he does then. See how fast Mr. Bone Spur can run away from you then. There was a bus of school children that was hit. They all died in Yemen. I know that there are a lot of people have died in Yemen, and a lot more people are going to die and are going to be starved to death. But how about some questions about that damn school bus that was hit? A school bus. What are you going to do? Oh, why is it? Tell me, why do I have the highest the highest approval rating among African Americans? The lowest African American unemployment. That's what he does. He has to know how many innocent people have been killed in Yemen because of him. and his love affair with the Saudis. Well, that love affair was even more apparent on the Bush. I had pictures in the video with Bush holding hands with that son of a. How many innocent? So is it worth it then? Or is it because you have you can point to some good temporary numbers on the economy that it was only part of a 7-year trend? That's okay. But he came right out and said it. He came right out and said about why he cannot condemn Saudi Arabia. CNN he can condemn. He can condemn Republicans that didn't support him, that lost in the midterms. He can condemn them, but he can't say a damn thing about Saudi Arabia. Why? He actually told us money. Money. Because brown people in Yemen don't matter to people like Trump and the rich who get richer and richer and richer off the blood of brown people, of the blood of poor who don't have a voice. Can you imagine if CNN every day was reporting about how many people were being killed just in Yemen from joint United States and Saudi Arabian raids every day? There should be a look. They had a stupid thing years ago about the so-called war on terrorism, where they had the thing at the ticker, the thing every day about the terror threat. Real journalism would be reporting on how many innocent people are being killed by these drone strikes. And there was another journalist that killed in Saudi Arabia just in the last week. Because not a damn thing. Not a damn thing is going to be done about it, because it's all about money. All about the big dollar. So that's what got me to get that upset and pull someone's press pass, because he's asking about the Russia investigation, when you can really hit that SOB with some serious questions. And they typically don't. They typically don't. So, what do you do? Number here is 218-632-9399. 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020. Yeah, I know the grab by the crotch seems to be irrelevant, but it just goes to show the hypocrisy. That's why I mention that. And this whole thing about the blue wave or ripple that the Democrats now control the House and can investigate. We've seen that before, where Democrats, they're all part of the same corrupt system. We're all getting rich off of the poor, abusing the poor and killing brown people in the Middle East. They don't give a damn. So with all the things that George Bush and Dick Cheney did, all the war crimes, launching 2 wars on the false pretenses, 2 wars. We don't want to put the country through that. Oh, history. That's right. And history should judge. Yeah. Can you imagine a police officer pulling you over? Hey, excuse me, jackass. I think history should judge me, not you and your associates. Someone saying Billy Connolly got it right when he said, "Don't vote. It just encourages them, but it's no laughing matter." Well, that's kind of a, and I know there was some people that were pretty pissed off about me suggesting voting. And I know the typical voluntarist or anarchist rant is it's just a blanket don't vote, and to piss and complain about anyone who does that. You're not a real anarchist if you vote. What if you vote for someone like Larry Krasner, who I mentioned in Philadelphia? What if you're voting for a policy of, let's say, decriminalizing marijuana? Is that something you shouldn't vote for? I mean, at least at the local level, these things, have chances of passing and do pass. So do you write it off? I mean, just today, do we write off somebody who, like Robert, who may want to, and someone, I don't remember who called the show the other day about jury duty. Do you get on your soapbox and beat your chest saying you're not a real anarchist if you go on jury duty? You can save somebody's life. I mean, it's supposed to be about principle. Well, you don't go and join the mafia and try to destroy it from the inside. Well, it's not really a fair comparison. The mafia does not enjoy a public perception that they are right, that they have a moral right to do what is immoral. People generally see what the mafia is doing in organized crime as crime. They don't see what government does as crime. There's an air of legitimacy there. So it's not exactly a fair comparison. So the idea, and I know this is why I don't respond to things on Facebook. It's very popular this week. They're very vocal anarchist, pissing on other people, saying you're not a real anarchist if you vote. Well, they may not have been voting for federal elections. That's hey, what if they're only voting on initiatives in referendums? They're voting on actual policy where we can see that those can pass and actually have a positive change. Decriminalization of marijuana is a positive change. Yeah, there's still going to be problems with it, but people are not nearly as many people going to jail. Someone's asking, Mark, would you endorse any politicians, say, like Kokesh? I wouldn't endorse anybody at the federal level. If there was somebody that was had a proven track record, like Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, who had already been fighting just blatant Brady violations as a defense lawyer, and they were running, yeah, I would throw support to them. I would support someone like Larry Krasner in Philadelphia. I think he's not. And then if you've got somebody, let's say a Free State participant who was running in New Hampshire for district attorney, and they were not going to prosecute marijuana cases, yeah, I would say you should if you're inclined to vote, you should vote for that person. So, we want to get to a voluntary society. So this idea that that there's a one size fit all, that there's only one way to get there is wrong. There are many tools in the box. Now, I know some are these. I have to stop. I have to stop looking at these. I'm sorry, I lost my whole train of thought because of this. Mark, why do you think cannabis is being decriminalized? Well, I think they're making more money on the other side, but for whatever reason they're looking to do that, I think what's important is there's less people in prison. That is a step in the right direction, isn't it? Yes, there may be nefarious purposes there, but it gets people out of prison. There's more public acceptance. The more states that decriminalize it, the closer you are to full decriminalization. I was saying there are more tools in the box. There are some that actually float the idea if you just ignore government, it'll go away. Yeah. So if you just ignore, like that was all you had to do, ignore Attila the Hun, it'll just go away. I guess that is the anarchist thought process that was in the Freddy Krueger movies. Well, they only have power because you give them power, because you think, you accept them. And just ignoring government is not enough. If there's actively, trying to build an alternative, if you're discrediting them by going to, am I not an anarchist because I've gone to city council meetings to discredit them? Am I not an anarchist because I recommend defending ourselves in court? You're engaging the system. You're not an anarchist. Just ignore them. If enough people ignore them, they'll just go away. Well, I think if civil disobedience, if you're ignoring them, whereas you're not complying as far as, practical as where, or maybe even taking a risk as an activist, great. But on its own, no. And no, I don't know. I used to be one of those never vote guys, but you have to look at the evidence. Marijuana laws changing, there is less people in prison. I don't think we're ever going to get that at the federal level. Unless you get you get so many people elected to Congress, or you have so many anarchists. You have so many anarchists that are refusing to convict, where they can't get convictions anymore. Yeah, that's a way to do it. It's a multifaceted thing. It's just wrong, I think, to just put a blanket, you're not an anarchist if you vote. That's, hey, you could say you're not an anarchist if you pay taxes, but I'm forced to. Well, what did Lysander Spooner write about that, about voting in no treason, a constitution, no authority? Voting can be seen as an act of self-defense. You're trying to get somebody in who's going to do less damage than the other guy. Again, I think you can show we can bring and do better at the local level. And so, yeah, I would get behind. In fact, I want to get on the show and start talking to some free state participants who are actually politicians, and see how open they are to the idea, again, of, like I've mentioned a few times already, of a constitutional amendment stripping prosecutors and judges of absolute immunity, making it, taking away the compulsory nature of taxation. Would somebody, as an anarchist, seriously, if you had a free stater or someone that had a good reputation, that wasn't just going to get into office and become a typical scumbag politician, they actually had a record and were principled, and that they would, to get in, and that they would start floating, putting these bills out to do this, someone who was elected sheriff, who would not enforce most of the drug laws, you would not vote for someone like that? Should you not vote for someone like Darryl Perry or Ian Freeman, who's more, it's gone, he has shown what his principles are. So if Ian was going for, let's say, mayor of Keene, New Hampshire, you say you shouldn't vote? Well, if you're an anarchist, you shouldn't vote for him. That what he could actually do if he was mayor? Knowing someone, Ian, and knowing what's going on in New Hampshire, you want to look at the damn evidence. Your generalizations, typically not a good place to be. And so I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's logical to just say, no voting. If you're an anarchist, you can't participate in the system and be a principled anarchist. Well, you still participate in the system by paying taxes. And those taxes are used to abuse innocent people and to kill them in the Middle East. So what do? We have to take advantage of all the tools. We have to use the tools. I've said, if you want people to get behind the anarchist mindset and reject the ruling class, we have to expose the ruling class as the criminals that they are. But there's not too many of us doing that, and I tell you, even among this audience, I can do a call of shame and get 400 views. So, it's a tough audience. It's a tough audience, but there are other channels that that get more views. So we'll but that to me will help the broader goal here if people can actually see them for what they are. And not just, see, the thing is, when we go in and discredit them like what I did and what I recommend doing, it's not just discrediting a politician. I'm not even so much interested in discrediting particular politicians. I want to show that the system itself is criminal and cannot be reformed other than to rip the legs out from the ruling class. And that is to a push to make the support of the government voluntary. So it's not even a government. They will actually be public servants, because we want the services, most of them. We want a lot of the services. You know, I mentioned water, the roads and whatnot. But the support doesn't need to be a prison system. And that's what props up the ruling class. The fact that they can get away and it's seen as moral and seen as ethical, that they force us to pay. That is what really needs to change, because without that, the ruling class loses its power. So if we've got somebody who's willing to go to bat and do something like that, yeah, I would certainly want to be able to support them. I may not be able to vote in New Hampshire, but I can certainly have them on the show, and I can help promote them and let people know about them. But to have people, very vocal anarchists, turn around and say that, there's really just one way to anarchy. There's only one way to a voluntary society, is to ignore the evidence. I would hate to be sitting in prison for a marijuana offense that could have been avoided if it had been decriminalized. And if there were enough people that would actually do that. But at least it seems like the tide is turning. Public sentiment is really in favor of decriminalizing it. So that's good. And that's a step in the right direction. And because what it does is it shows, again, how immoral it is to put people in prison who haven't hurt anybody. I can get over that. I can get behind that. So we'll see. We'll see how, if people are willing to get behind it. Going and discrediting the entire system is easy to do, but there's not too many people actually doing it. So, I'm kind of limited in what I can do, at least as far as going to city council meetings. But city councils meet, practically every week. So it's something that can be done. But hey, I just can't get behind the if you're not a real anarchist if you vote, because like Spooner said, it's an act of self-defense. So yeah, we'll see. Wow, we're really low on phone calls. Maybe it's because it's a Friday show and it's the time that we're actually doing this. The number here is 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. And someone's saying, Mark, do you think you need to evolve your format? Yeah, I do the show as a matter of, it was always an extension of what I do during the week. It was not meant to be the biggest podcast in the world. I didn't start doing this so I could beat my chest and say, hey, I got I got this, it was to help people. I'd like to have more of an audience to help more people, but it's difficult to say. There's so much work that is involved in the promotion, and it's just not something I have the opportunity, or the inclination to do. I look here, there's 12,000 subs. I barely get 1,000 views on videos. So that just tells me it's a very transient audience, in that people are listening for help on traffic tickets. The vast majority are listening for traffic ticket, and then they move on. So the ticket gets resolved or it doesn't get resolved, and they move on. I don't want to do a show just talking about anarchy, though. I don't want, somebody floated the idea, well, why don't you have guests on? I don't mind having a guest on that's someone, that's actually doing something, that's accomplishing something. I don't want to just talk about the theory or the philosophy of anarchy, because nobody tunes in for that either. If that's why I mentioned having someone from the Free State. I have to get over. I've gotten over my my distaste because they kicked someone like Ian Freeman out. But I'm interested in getting to a voluntary society, and if there is a Free State participant that wants to come on the show and they've successfully run for office and they're interested in getting to a voluntary society, then yeah, I'm interested in having them on. Is that going to drive up the view count? It depends on the guest. But what ultimately is important is that people are being helped. So it is really discouraging to have 12,000 subs and barely, the last few videos barely got more than 500 views. Well, someone's saying you had a debate with that one Gaul character that's trying to post videos about. Have I had? Yes, he's been on the show and he's insufferable. He never stops talking. And it was, I let him pull his stupid lawyer trick on me, of deliberately getting me ticked off. And because it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, someone not stopping talking. So here I gave him a platform to take as long as he needed to ask his questions or make his point and present his argument. But then when I tried to talk, he just kept on talking. And I would wait. And then I'd start to talk and he would start talking again. So, yeah, I had him on, but something like that, the phone, the show is open for anyone to call in with criticism. And if they want to, show that the laws do apply, that there's evidence that they do, if they want to prove that there are states, if they disagree with something I've said, if my logic is off, if my facts are wrong. And generally, we don't get calls. We don't get calls like that. Maybe it's because most of the people listening to the show see the logic. They've analyzed it and they see that it's sound. But yeah, getting into discussions with people like that is fine as long as they're professional about it and don't interrupt you every single time you open up your mouth. You have to just kind of imagine what that's like. That was an hour and a half, and the last hour I wanted to shoot myself in the face. And part of, and a lot of it's my fault. I said I was not going to use the mute button. And so what I should have done when he would not stop interrupting me was just not use the mute button, but just dump him off the show. I bent over backwards for him, and I will never do anything like that again. I even burned through the commercials on because it was an LRN stream, and I went through the commercials because I didn't want to hear his stupid excuses that I was interrupting him and that I wasn't allowing him to speak, and I was using the commercial as an excuse. So there's for whatever reason, he claims to be a multi-millionaire, and he spends he used to, at least at one point. I haven't seen anything lately, but he'd hang on every word and put out a video with every show I did. So, but if there are other people that and that disagree, and if they are willing to come on the show, we're more than happy to host them, as long as they're a professional. From now on, I would use the mute button. No one's going to get that courtesy again. Because it's the only way to maintain any kind of professionalism. So, yeah, if there's a politician, a local politician, somebody knows that believes that the system is great but flawed, hey, have them call the show. Again, I'm happy to have them on. So, yeah, I got rid of that. Okay. Well, let's see. Someone just had their car towed over an expired registration. Would love for you to be able to show him how to question the court. Well, have him call the show. Or we could do on Discord next week. We can do a role-playing session. So I would recommend to Brian that he get the motion to dismiss and the discovery request and take it from there and use that as the basis of the defense, because it's proven time and time again that it is an effective way to defend yourself. So, yeah, you know, and it's all based on pure logic. Yeah, I know. You're going to hear this crap that you can't use basic principles of logic in court, but you do every day. So, one of those, of course, is relevance. Something has to be relevant. So, yeah. Well, you know, I hate to do this, but it looks like I have no choice. I'm gonna just say that's it for the show today. We didn't get any more callers, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap it up here, and let everyone, you know, we'll be live on the Wednesday broadcast again, and we are. Yeah, all right. But I will be live on the Wednesday broadcast right here on my YouTube channel, No Stay Project. If you're not subbed, get subbed so that you'll know exactly when we go live. And we should be doing the role-playing session on Thursday at the same time as the show, which is 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. So, yeah, it kind of messes up for me because I got to start an hour later, which is fine on the Saturday show. Not so much on the Wednesday broadcast, but it's all right. But we'll do that from 3 to 4, going over court procedure. And we covered a lot of court procedure here on the big show today. So until next Wednesday, salud.